Hi, my name is Sarah Damra. I'm going to be going over chapters 4, 5, and 6 of my book, the 9th edition, Communication, Making Connections. Chapter 4 talks about language and how it's really important because people can judge you based upon your language. Language helps us to build connections with other people, and it's really hard to build a connection with somebody if there was a language barrier. For instance, at work, I know it's really hard sometimes for us, the medical staff, to communicate with patients if they don't understand us. So actually, I took it upon myself to learn medical terms in Spanish so that way I can communicate with my Hispanic patients. Another thing chapter 4 was talking about was how a scholar said that people with poor language have no voice in society. And the people she was referring to is like the minority people, like African Americans, women, gays. She said they were part of a theory, a muted group theory, because they lack that language. Another thing I learned about in chapter 4 is euphemism. Euphemism is used to hide a meaning to something. Euphemism can also be used to exaggerate something, make something that's not so cool seem like something extravagant. I also read about metaphorical language and how that's important because the person you're communicating with can really understand you better because you are comparing things that they have an understanding of. Alright, let's go into chapter 5. Chapter 5 talked a lot about nonverbal language, which includes like behavior, symbols, or objects, whether intended or not. You really have to be careful with nonverbal language and nonverbal communication because you can really offend somebody or hurt somebody's feelings. I can tell you that, for instance, in my family, I'm from Algeria, and in our family, when we meet each other, the way we greet each other is that we kiss. We 2 to 4 times on the cheek. So, but I know in the American culture, guys don't really kiss each other. Guys, they think that's gay or something. So whenever I would have like friends come over to the house, like I always like pre-warn them, like, hey, I just want you to know, like, if my mom or dad goes up to you and starts kissing you, it's okay, okay? It's just they're just welcoming you and they're just meeting you, and that's how we do things. We kiss. Another thing I read about in chapter 5 was proxemics, which was like the study of how we use space and the distance we use and the distance we place ourselves and the other person we're communicating with. And that's really important for me as a medical assistant in the medical field. I have to get close to my patients to be able to listen to their medical history, listen to their chief complaint. So I have to get close enough to be able to hear them. But at the same time, I can't get too close. I can't invade their like space, you know? So the only time I usually get really close to a patient is if it's like a screaming kid and the provider, doctor, PA is trying to put stitches in them or something, like I'm having to hold a kid down, or in a case where the patient's actually trying to show me like a body part and show me like an infection. That's the only time I usually get really close to the patient. The distance thing applies to me, like I don't want to get too close to the patient, but it applies to the patient too. I typically don't accept hugs at work from patients. You know, I appreciate them trying to hug me. They appreciate me, but I usually don't accept that. I just say, sorry, please. You know, we can't do that at our job. I don't let the patients hug me because I don't want to get what they have. You know, I appreciate them, you know, feeling like they have to give me a hug and everything, but I really don't like, I like my space. I don't like patients hugging me. Another thing about chapter 5 that I was reading about was artifacts. And artifacts are just things that people judge you based upon. For instance, like I've had people assume that I have a kid. Oh, I don't know what just happened. Okay, back. Alright, sorry. So I was saying that sometimes people will think that I have a kid because I drive around with my sister's car seat in my car, and it's just because of my niece. I have to have her car seat. Another thing is I wear a National Guard Army book bag, and a lot of times around school people will just stop me and say, hey, thank you for your service, and like I'll have to tell them, you know, I'm sorry, I'm not in the National Guard. My brother just gave me this book bag. That's the truth. He just gave it to me because I have a lot of books, a lot of heavy books, and my laptop too. So it's just a big book bag that does the job for me. It's really important to correct miscommunication and misinterpretation. For me personally, I have a conscience. I can't walk around having people think that I'm doing all this service for the United States when I'm not. Like, I could not handle boot camp, let alone, you know, going overseas or any of that. Another thing that I was reading about was chapter 6. Okay, let's move on to chapter 6. Chapter 6 talked about listening. My mom always says, you know, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen more than we speak. And listening and hearing it's kind of different, but you can't listen to something without hearing it, and then you can't hear something if you're not listening. Let me tell you a story. I had a patient one time, this guy come in, and he said his wife sent him because he couldn't hear what she was saying. And he was telling me, like, I don't think I have a hearing problem. Like, I've never had issues with my hearing. And he was like, but I don't know because I don't ever hear her. When she asked him to do things for her, or like go grocery shopping, or take the trash out, or whatever it is, like he doesn't hear it for some reason. And so we checked his hearing. Hearing was all normal. And so we just came to the conclusion that he just had selective hearing. He just heard what he wanted to hear. He doesn't really like taking the trash out and shopping for groceries, so that's why he didn't hear it. But I also read about effective listening, and it's really important to use critical listening also. You have to really pay attention and be conscious of what you're listening to. You don't want to be gullible and just believe everything you hear. So you really have to pay attention. Alright, well, that was my synopsis. Thank you for watching.